Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we'll be learning about CSS Grid layout, how we achieve responsive websites using Grid. So I've opened W3 School. So we use Grid to achieve two-dimensional layout, unlike Flexbox where we use it for just 1D. That means one dimensional. Either you want to arrange your flex item along your cross axis or your main axis or along the horizontal or the vertical. But for if you want to achieve this kind of layout, you can't use flex. You cannot use flexbox because you can only either align your item horizontally or you align it vertically. You can't do both. As a result of this, grid was created. So let's go to our code and let's see how it works in practice. So I've written my HTML file. I created the parent container called with a class name of container. Then I created the children. This is the children, almost similar to the way we style Flexbox. So I'll be using the internal styling style. So it's called style. Mind you, it will still work this way. So remember that at first everything is displayed as a block element. Then we change the property, the display property. Let's target the container dot the class grid container dot container. Then the display property, we'll change it to provide the value of grid. So we've provided the value of grid. Then there's another property called the grid template colon and the grid template row. So for the colon, we want the colon to be this. So in fact, what I want to do is I want to go online and get more document. But let's start with this first of all. So the colon, how we create the proportion of the colon that we want. We can either use this 1FR, which stands for fractional ratio. That means that depending on the total number of colons that you want, we may want two colons. Okay, let me make it more. Let's copy this. Copy. Okay, good. Okay, like I said, we have the grid colon. I want to give it how many colons based on what I've written here. Let me call this one the fifth, number 5, right? 5. Okay, let's take things at a time. I don't think we need this now. I just want to align everything. We have the header because I was trying to create this this layout using grid so that we use it as an example. But before creating this, I just wanted to just explain further how grid operates. This is my Yes, code. Let's comment this. Let's just leave this as it is. Let's make use of it. I want to just make it like 2 colon, should be 2 colon. You can use the fractional ratio. This FR start from fractional ratio. I've already made it 2 colon. There's a property called grid template row. For the row, I equally want to make it 2 rows, 1 FR and 1 FR. So what it means is, what this thing actually means is that the the role will be of equal ratio. The role will be of equal ratio. I can as well as I can as well make this one 1 and make this one 3. So that means that 3 will be, if I make this one 3, for example, let's say 3, and we also make this one 2. That means that it will have the size, twice the size of 1. So let's see it in practice. Good. You can see how it's arranged. So also I've created a class here. All of them have unique class called items. And the good thing about flex and grid is that you may be thinking, why should I use flex? Or should I just decide to go with flex? Or should I decide to go with grid? Actually, you can use both of them together. You can as well use flex inside grid and use grid inside flex. So all of them are important depending on what you want to achieve. You can use both of them at the same time. So you remember this property is will always be written on the parent container. So now let's go to the child container. Let's, for example, the items, if the grid item. So let's make the background color. Let's provide the background color of, let's start with this. So we've provided a background, a unique background color. At the same time, we want to know, and mind you, there's also a property called gap here. It's similar to what we have in Flexbox. Let's just make it 5 pixel. So we've already made it 5 pixels. So this is the gap. You can see that this one is taking the colon is 1 to 2. So this is actually 1 to 2. Why this one is, the roll is 1 to 3. So you can see how it displays it differently. If I decide to change it to this, you can see the way to display it differently. So we just kept it as 3. Fine. So I already created this as the background color. What if I want to what if I want to apply Flexbox to this grid? How will we do it now? Remember, the same system still applies for Flexbox, in the sense that your item should be inside a container. So now this is like this, all these div have a unique class of item. So I can target this item to achieve that. So over here, what I'll just do is provide a display property and change it to flex. So what I will do with this is that I want this words that we place here to appear at the center. As a result of that, I also want to provide a width for each of them so that it will be bigger a little bit. So I've already changed the property to flex. So before even changing changing the property to flex, okay, let's provide the height, right? Let's give it a definite height. So height, what should we give it? Let's give it the height of, we cannot really specify the height here because if we specify it, because different, we've already apportioned them different height, because this one is meant to be within the ratio of 1 to 3. So let's see what will happen if we provide this one with, okay, with 20 pixel. Let's give it, I think 50 is 200 was getting much. Let's give it 100 pixel. 100 pixel. You see, once we do this, that means that we have override the instruction that we provided here. So always take note of that. So in order for me to give it a definite height, so that what we provided here will be valid, let me comment this out. I will target the individual item with another class. Let me use this one, for example, num1, and I provide the height of, I've provided the height of 100 pixel. Good, 100 pixels. So you see what just applied. Just because I have provided this one with 100. Now, the first div, right? This header, I provided it with the height of 100. Immediately, this one will have what? 300 will be assigned because of what I've already provided. The property I've already written in the container. Now, let's continue with our flex box. So how can we center this item? How can we move this item to the center? Remember, we did it in the previous class using flexbox. So now there's a property. Remember, there's a property called justify content. We can set it at center, right? Good. Already set it at center. Then there's another property called align items. Then the align items, we put it to center, and it will move our devices to the center. So please, if you are new to this channel, please endeavor to subscribe, and if you have not watched the previous video or you haven't understand what flexbox is, my last video was on that. So this video is just more about grid. You can just go over it, and I've explained most of everything about grid. So we've already achieved this, we've already placed it to the center. Do you see how nice it and how beautiful it looks? I can equally change it, provide a color, right? I think I prefer this a white color. Good. I've already changed it to white. Now do you see how it looks? So this is grid in action, and this is actually responsive in the sense that if I reduce the height, or sorry, reduce the width, depending on the various devices, we can see that it still maintains this layout. If you are using a laptop, it can be as wide as this, but once you reduce it to tab, it will still be displaying the same content, and it will just be reducing the size. So this is actually a responsive website. And just imagine you can write different article here. I just decided to just write this as illustration. I can as well as add image, add more of HTML element to achieve this. So this is just the fractional ratio, and it's actually responsive. The other method of flex sizing, we also have a fixed. For example, we can provide a value of 100 here, 100 pixel. Then we provided a value of 200 pixel here, 200 pixel, not that, 200 pixel. Good. Now we can equally provide a value of 100 here, pixel. Then this one can change it to 300 pixel. Good. But one thing you need to observe about this is that it is not going to be responsive, because you can see once you reduce the size, some parts will be chopped up. So this is not actually a responsive website. So it's just that is required for you to just have idea about it. Apart from using pixel, you can use the RAM, you can use the EM, and we have explained more of that RAM is relative to the HTML, to the roots, while the EM is relative to the parent. So all those explanation I've done that using in my previous video. So we know RAM like this. We know the EM. We even know the PT, and so that's just it. This one is fixed. Another way that which we can achieve grid layout is using repeat. Repeat. Supposing these two were just 200 pixel each. So supposing they were 200 pixel each. Yes, I want to drag it back so that it looks okay. 200 pixel. Instead of me writing this, there's a shorter method of me writing this, which is just, I'll remove this. I'll just write the word repeat, repeat, then open a bracket. Then how many times do I want to repeat it? Let me say 2 times. Then comma, the size, which is 200, or is it 100 pixel? I think 100 pixel if I'm correct. 100 pixel. Oh, I think I'm wrong. That's not what I did before. So you can see the default value has to do with the number of times which you want to repeat the size. You can see how it works. At the same time, you can equally add a value of auto here. No, if we add the value of auto, that means that both of them will be equal. Auto is also a property. That means they will cover the full width. Automatic cover the full width. As you are reducing, as you are expanding, you see this one is actually even responsive depending on this your screen size. So apart from it being auto, we can also do repeat for this one. There's another property that we need to know again, is the min max. Min max means the, let me return this thing back to what it was before. Good. So this is what it was before. Let me drag it out. Okay, these two sides are equal. Good. So there's also a property, a value called the min max. And how does it work? So supposing I want this first row, this is the first row, right? And this is the row. Second row. Let me make use of colon. I think colon will be more. Let me use colon for this. Let me change the value from this repeat. Let's use the normal value, 100 pixel. Then there's a property called the min max, and I'll provide a value of, let me say 200 pixel, then comma 500 pixel. So what does this implies? What this implies is that on a small screen, when there is no much space that is within 200 pixel, the size of the second container, this is the second column, will be this. But as the screen expands, it will go to 500. That's the max. Min max. Look at the normal size now. This is the normal size. This is 100, while this one is 500. But now, it will if I shrink it, that means shrink has to do with the reduction in size as a result of the screen. So if I reduce it, watch what will happen. It will keep going down. It will keep reducing, keep reducing, keep reducing, keep reducing until when it gets to 200. After 200, it will disappear from the screen. And that is not what we want. We won't want to build a website that when when someone accesses it via their mobile device, some things will be lost. That's not what you will want to achieve, right? So let's go down. Supposing I added copy, okay. Supposing I added additional item, but I did not specify that. I didn't specify anything. So see what happened here under. So it just gave it just a certain position over there. So you may be building website or building an application, yeah, website application that you've not really planned on. You are still developing your content, and you can as well have just assign you can provide a value on the parent container to provide a definite size for your item should in case you add more. And how do we achieve this property? There's a property called grid dash auto dash colon or rule. So if you add this is a row, right? This is a row. So let's add row here. So we can just give it a fixed. We can just give it like 70% pixel, or let's just say 100%, 100 pixel. So you can see what just happened. So I've already applied this. As simple as that. The same thing still goes for colon. I can as well still add more to colon. So that is all about Flexbox. But before we call it a day, I would like us to achieve this together. You can see I want us to achieve this together. So I will also use it to talk about some other property like the colon span, like the grid colon property, which is going to be given to the children. So we want to achieve this layout. Like this is a nice layout. This is basically how some website can even be built, and we can use flex to even achieve this, and we can use flexbox even inside grid, and we can use grid inside flexbox. It works like that. So let's try and achieve this together. So what I will do is that I will minimize my screen, or I think let me allow you guys to see how it is done in practice. So let me remove all these things. Let's start afresh together. Good. Let me delete everything here. So we start afresh together. Good. We are starting afresh together in order to achieve what we saw in that CSS grid W3 school example. So remember, we are using the internal styling. use the word style. Good. Then the parent container, then we provide the value, the display, call it grid, then grid template colon, the grid template colon. Let's go back to the diagram. I think I need to cut this out. So I will explain everything as it's going. So let me minimize this and let me keep this on also here. Minimize this also so that we can see everything together. Good. So let's do it side by side so that we can see what we are aiming to achieve. Now let's look at this diagram. So how do we know the total number of row and column that we have? So there is, this is one row, two row, and this is the third row. So let's go to the row, grid colon row. We have one, two, three. So I can be right to say that this this header is bigger than the footer, right? And I can say that this one, this header is twice the size of this. So what I want to use is that I want to give this one a value of 1.5 fr. Then this one I want to give it a value of 3 fr because I'm zooming with my eyes that is actually twice the size of the header. Then the footer I want to give it a different value of just one fr. Remember the fr stand for fractional ratio, the same way in mathematics you talk about ratio 1 to 2, ratio 3 to 5 and thereabout. So this is just what it is now. So for the column, how do we know the total number of columns? So we basically have two columns because you may be assuming that, oh, this is just one now. It's actually two. See, this line, this is the grid line. This is the grid gap. This is the gap. It's just that something, this one expanded to cover this. So this is actually two column. So let me show you an example. Good. I created this before. So let me come on. I created this while trying to prepare for this video. So this is what we are aiming to achieve. Now there's what we call the developer tool. If you press your F12 on your computer, it will bring out this and you can see the the element and the CSS that have been applied to it and the HTML element. This is the body which I created the same way and you can see I applied grid to it. So now let's learn this. So don't know if I can zoom this more out. This is not coming much. So if you look closely, we have on this image, we have different items, right? We have different lines. You can see that this is one line, this is another line, and this one is also another line. Different lines. Let me see if I can increase the good, good, good. So I think this is actually much better. This is actually much better. So we have different, these are actually the gaps. You can see that there's a gap here. It's just that this one expanded here. So this is the first line starting from here. This is the second line. And there's also a third line called line 3. It also has negative value, but under this 4 is line, beneath this 4 is line 3. All these ones are line. The same way we have the vertical line, that's also the same way we have the horizontal line. So this, for the horizontal line, we have this is line 1, we have line 2, we have line 3, and we also have line 4. So this is a proof that it is actually two column. This column 1 and this is column 2. So we've known about that. These ones are, it's important for you us to also learn about some concepts. This can be seen as, this can be called a track. This blue box can be called a track. Why this one is the line. We also have cell. Cell is like a container. This is a cell. This is a cell. This one is also a cell, but this one is also a cell. But together collectively like this, they are called track because they are just spanning for just the header. So let's go back to our code. Good. This was what we were trying to achieve. Good. This is our code. So now we've known that, oh, we have two columns now. So I want the ratio to be, this should be 1 to, I think 1 to 3. Let's say 1 to 3. Correct. 1 FR to 3 FR because I'm using the fractional ratio. So I think I'm done with this. I can as well as close it now so that we will see how it plays as I'm coding it out. Good. So see what we've done. Look at our design. So we've already done our grid. Now that's okay. Mind you, we don't need, we've already achieved what we want to get. Now let's address them individually now. Dot item. First of all, let's see how it is. Have we added our gap? No, we haven't added our gap. Remember the gap, there are some properties that are ascribed for the parent, while there are some other properties that are ascribed for the child. So this is the parent, container is the parent, while this is the child. So for the gap, the same way gap is applied on the parent, that's where it's meant to be. Let's give it 5 pixel. Good. Then for the, I want to provide a background color generally for all the items. Let me give them a background color of yellow green, something like that. Good. I've given them this background color. You can see how our website is already taking shape. Now I haven't provided that. Remember, I said with one of my videos, I said as much as possible we should try and avoid white spacing or white gaps. We should reduce it so that it won't give out. So for the first item, which is the header, so let's target it. It has another class called one. So we want to target each child individually. So the header, let's first give it a width. This width will apply to everything. Remember the previous video when I was saying it. So let's give it a, provide a width of, let me see what our 100 pixel will looks like. No, not width, sorry, the height. The height, because we already specified the width here. So height, we are it is py good height. Good. We've provided the height of this. So it will take effect on everything because we've already ascribed some information here. We've already given it height of this. Then there's a property called the grid colon. Good. So now remember colon because I remember when growing up during class sometimes you'll be do sometimes you have that difficulty differentiating between colon and rule because where in school then when I was in primary school you're like, oh, row one stand up, row we already know the way we position ourselves. We usually know that, oh, we felt that, oh, this one is a rule, while the other side is a colon, which is wrong in school because we said that my teacher then will just tell you that, oh, row one stand up. So that is actually wrong. So I learned it the wrong way, but this is actually colon. See colon here, colon, this is colon A and this colon B. This is colon, colon A and colon B. While row is just like this. This is a row, this row one, this row two, and this row three. So don't make that kind of mistake that I did. So this is colon, the first box, colon, the second box, this one is also the second colon. But if you go like this is actually row. So grid colon now. So for the grid colon, we can give it a property of span 2. Span 2. So what span 2 means is that it's going to occupy two columns. So it's going to occupy two columns. That is what span 2 means. Span 2 is going to occupy two columns. Before then, I don't like the way this my head and all these other items are aligned to this side. Can we find a way of putting it at the center? Remember I said we can achieve this using flexbox. That means that you deciding to choose grid does not mean that flexbox is now null and void. You can still use it. So at this item, because item is a class that is required that all the different children also has. So I can just come here and give it a display of flex. Good. I've given a display of flex. Then I can also provide a property of called justify content, which we did before, called we can give it center, so the item is already position centered. We can also give it another property called align item, which we place to center also. So you can see that it appears here. At the same time, I want to just give it a color. I don't like this color. I want to give it a color of white. Color of white. So white. Good. I've given it a color of white. You can see how our website is already taking shape. Now, what do we observe now that we've only us specifying this, it's already taking shape because it's taking the default direction. Because now see, we specify that it should have two column, but now we make sure that add one add occupied span 2, right? So in his mind that, oh, I've already achieved this. Then the second item that we place, which is item 2, which it has to do with the link, it will take the next available space. Then it will take After taking the next available place, it will also take the other one will also take the next one involved. So now, as we can see that it is already taking shape. The first div was this, then the second div went to the next available space, then the third one went to this, but the fifth one now went to this. But what we want to achieve is that for the fifth one, when we looked at our example, the footer extended down here. So how can we achieve this? You can just target it. It's called the fourth, right? Number four. So we can target it and provide a, this is actually a colon, right? This one colon and this is one another colon. So we can just target the colon property and change it to span 2. So once you change it to span 2, you can see that actually achieved what was we've achieved what we wanted. We achieved what we wanted. Where's my thing? You can see we've achieved almost similar thing with this. So that's what we've done. And one thing about grid is that it has different property, and it's not as if that it is very difficult to use. You can use it alongside with Flexbox to achieve flexible and responsive layout. Let's go over to you can just add your footer, your your header, your article. You can just write them, and you can see they even told you the difference between grid and flexbox. For flexbox, for grid is a one-dimensional layout, while flexbox is a two-dimensional layout, while grid is a one-dimensional, either for the column or for the row. Why for the grid you can use for both. You can see the talked about the grid container, the grid items, and this is a good example of it in practice. Remember, everything must be inside the children must be inside the container, the parent container. So this is how it is. You can see how. And one thing I also want to talk about, apart from all these property, you can see some other property which are not difficult to understand. Just go through W3 school. What I thought was the basic, and that is what you'll be using for most of your work. So, like I was saying, this grid, let me open what we just built. Good. So, this grid column actually is a shorthand for grid start and grid end. Grid start and grid end. Let me copy this and open it on a new tab so we can see what this actually means. Good. You can see how it is now. So remember the developer tool, I can press F12, or I can decide to just right click, then I'll go to inspect, and once I've already clicked on inspect, I will see the HTML elements and the CSS style that is applied if I want the CSS. But now look at this. You know that this actually two column, but you can see the line here. And one thing about the line is that you don't specify the color. In order to achieve a certain color of line, you can just change the background property. So it will just pick that background property. But aside from that, as I was telling you that the grid itself is a shorthand for, I said the grid span is a shorthand for grid start and grid end. So this is the elements. So let me come down, let me bring this thing up. So grid is this, the CSS type, right? So you can see that we apply grid, we apply the role, and we also give it a gap of, so this gap is also a shorthand for row gap and column gap. You can see how it is. You can see how it is. It's not something that is just mysterious. So the same way span is a shorthand for grid start and grid end. So it's one thing we need to understand. So talking about the code. So you can just use this developer to just try and just see how things works, how things are applied. You can on the button off it to just see how things are, are done and applied to each other. And see, good. So this line one and this line two. Why this one is line three? For the rule, this line one, line two, line three, and line four. So if I don't even want to use this property, let me go back to this. If I don't want to use this property, I can specify where it should start and when it should end, because I said this one is actually a shorthand. I can as well as did I can as well do something like this. Grid colon starts. It's starting at what? It's starting at line one, good. Then grid colon colon end is ending at line 3. You can see that we still achieve the same similar thing, line 3. And another property that Flexbox also has is the order property, something like this, order. And, I can let me give it the order of 1. Let's see what will happen. You can see that as we gave it order of 1, it changed position and went where? To the end. So the default order is, you can even use this order to even arrange your elements. So CSS is very, very interesting and very, very good. So over the course of this lecture, since this video, we've been on CSS for a very long time. Now this is the advanced level of CSS, which we have learned how to create a responsive website. And it's a good thing we know all these things, because we'll be learning how to design websites. So I created a website, and which is actually responsive. So in my next lecture, we'll be putting into practice all the various properties we've been learning in CSS. So the major reason why I actually broke everything down bit by bit is that I don't want to just feed you with too much information. Because I remember when I started coding, when I saw many of all these things, I was like, what's this? You will leave it. So I needed to break it gradually. Look at this website. I just thought about it and I built it. And it's actually a responsive website. The size changes depending on the size of the screen. The style changes depending on, you can see how it changes here. So we'll be putting into practice what we've learned so far in order to achieve something similar to this. Like build something like this and add it as your portfolio, so that when somebody asks you that, oh, what have you done? This is what I've done. So in my next video, we'll be practicing how to build website using all the knowledge about floats, CSS Grid, CSS Flexboard, media query, and the rest of them to achieve a responsive website. So please, if you find this video informative and helpful, please please hit the subscribe button in order for other people to have access to it, so that the algorithm can recommend my video. Thank you and God bless.